you have prompted a memory. A dear friend of mine now passed away. John Dorman was a phenomenal artist who worked in animation, and he was a difficult person to work with, let's just put it that way. And but he was an honest person, and he was hired to do the storyboards for Prince of Egypt, the climax, the parting of the Red Sea. And the original producer, not the Steven Spielberg level producer, but the actual line producer, she had some very specific ideas of how she wanted things done. And to wit, she wanted Moses' wife to take the staff, break it across her knee, and say, "No, have faith in yourself, you can part the sea." And John was not a very religious person, but, you know, he knew BS when he smelled it. So, but he needed the money, so he storyboarded the scene, and he did it exactly the way she wanted it done, and he brought it to her, and she was looking at it, she said, "Oh, this is fine, this is wonderful, but I'm puzzled by one thing. This character in the cape with the horned helmet and the big hammer, who's he?" And John said, "Well, that's Thor. I thought since you're messing around with the Bible, you might as well throw him in."
If I could just share a bit, I was a religious issues consultant on that film, and they did that right, at least. Although it's interesting, I mean, it's different things like happen. The song that you know from Whitney Houston and Mariah Carey, the duet, "Miracles Can Happen When You Believe," was originally written, "You can do miracles if you believe," and those of us, Jewish, Muslim, Christian theologians who read the script and no, that was it. People don't do miracles, and part of the story is the God's the one doing miracles. I found it interesting that they said, of course, we have to take some liberties and things, and one of the big things that they prepared us for, you know, we're not going to change this. We're going to have the big chariot race at the beginning, if you recall that. And then I remember many secular critics panning that and saying it just didn't fit with the story. And so they did say, you know, on some level you can't mess with that.
Well, to link back to what you were saying about the various children's Bibles, and Robert Crumb, and as I said, Crumb's great strength as an artist is that he's completely honest. Crumb leaves in the incident. Well, no, he leaves in all the begats, that's true, and also, as an inside joke, a lot of the begats are Jewish comedians. That they're these characters who only appear as names are Jewish comedians that he used them as models, but he did them straight, he did them in traditional costume, but you can clearly identify three of them as the Three Stooges. Noah's sons. Noah's sons are based on the Three Stooges, even though it's not done as a humorous scene. Those are what the characters he drew based them on. But Crumb includes the story of Dinah, which is typically left out in the story of Joseph. Now, I assume most people are familiar that Joseph has a dream where he's going to be ruling over his brothers, and his brothers get jealous, and they sell him into slavery, but they tell his father he's been eaten by a wild animal, and his father is heartbroken. Joseph goes to Egypt. After a series of ups and downs, becomes the equivalent of the prime minister of Egypt, prepares them for this horrible famine. When the famine hits, Egypt has food, and Joseph's brothers have to come to Egypt to beg for food, and Joseph reveals himself, etc., etc. In between the point where he has the dreams and is sold off into slavery and the point where we resume the story in Egypt, there's a story of Joseph's sister Dinah, who is, depending upon how you choose to interpret the ancient Hebrew, either raped or seduced by the son of a local headsman. And the father comes to Jacob and says, this was a terrible thing, we're sorry, but we want to make it right, we want to marry, we want my son to marry your daughter so everything's all right. And Jacob says, okay, I'll do it if everybody becomes circumcised. The headsman uses his powers of persuasion to convince all the males in his village to become circumcised. And while they are recovering from their circumcision, two of Joseph's brothers, including Levi, who becomes the founder of the Levite clan, go into the village, kill all the men, enslave all the women, and steal all the cattle. And they do this because their sister has been dishonored. That's an important story to tell, but it is almost never told in Sunday schools. And the reason it's important is that in Exodus, Moses says an eye for an eye and a tooth for a tooth. He's not being bloodthirsty. He's saying, whoa, punishment in proportion to the crime. Not go and slaughter everybody and kill them because, they dishonored your sister.
We also don't like to tell, throughout much of American religious history, a religious person was not really supposed to be a person of passion. It's one of the things I like about the Action Bible. You see people with feeling, moving, instead of, a lot of the children's Bible illustrations of people just standing there. It's part of what I like about Serenity, your character, and all of the characters, aren't these cookie-cutter, all of these people, if you read the Hebrew Bible, people behaving badly, but when you read children's Bibles, you don't get that. They're all shiny role models. You leave out those parts. And also leave out often the few stories of women who play a role here, a significant role, use of subversive power. Key to the Exodus story was the fact that the midwives, the Israelite midwives, snuck these babies and saved them, and even the Egyptian midwives helping. But that's never told. It's never told in any of the retellings, hardly. And it's a great, compassionate, subversive use of power to do what is just. But we don't tell those stories, especially to our children. We say, be good, be perfect, and just be a cookie-cutter person. And I think, again, that goes into the poor storytelling that we often get with Christian fiction, whether it's novels or in whatever medium it is.
And by that, we're doing the audience disservice as well by watering down or using a current 21st century term, dumbing down the material itself.
And making it boring.
Well, I have written on this myself because I'll just wrap this up. We Americans, when we read the story of Hebrews slaves, we think American-style slavery. We imagine in our minds Moses as Martin Luther King. When you read the actual text, he was Dolomite. Okay, he was not a saintly, nice, sweet person. He was a guy who murdered people because you get ticked off at him, and was an extremely violent, agitated person. We've been told to stop. Let's do a real quick rundown. Mike, what are you doing? And tell them where to find you.
My168project.com or .co or .net, depending on how the internet wants to resolve it. Also, I have a movie, Watchmaker, which we can talk about in the next panel tomorrow. It has been optioned, and the push for that will start September 15th. The company is Perseverance Entertainment Works.
Okay, Russell, quick.
I guess a marvelous miss. I know Kevin wants to say a word about
Wait, I said Watchman. It's Watchmaker. I'm sorry. Okay, keep going.
But Marvelous Miss, available at good bookstores everywhere, and Amazon.com and ChalicePress.com, and right here.
And right here with limited quantities of free samples for the kind people who have come to
the Christian Comics Art Society table downstairs in the small press area. Enter the drawing, and I can practically guarantee you'll win. Sergio.
Wait, can I? Cool. Okay.
Go ahead.
Tell us what you're up to, real quick.
Okay, I'm downstairs at CC19, and you can find me at theactionbible.com, because it's easier to remember than to remember my last name, SERGIOCARIELLO.com. But if you put Sergio, it might even fit in the second page of Google.
Okay. My name is is Buzz Dixon. My websites are buzzdixon.com and snokiestories.com, SNOKIE. Our new graphic novel, Hits and Misses, 480-page girls' sports story, is available through Amazon. Please look it up and read it and write great reviews about it. Thank you very much. Thanks for attending.